The Global Quran, a dynamic comprehension, a human perspective. Chapter 1, The Cow, Part 8, Paying Obligations with Enlightenment. Learn before you apply. Briefing to Chapter 1. This chapter of the Quran signifies the characteristics of people based on which the Quran calls them the blessed or the disgraced. The two categories are symbolized via examples taken from Bani Israel, who appear to be the descendants of Prophet Yaqub or Jacob, the grandson of Ibrahim or Abraham. The blessed are described as those who are honest with their faith and with people. They possess scholarship, demonstrate excellence in their character, and apply justice to resolve matters without discrimination. The disgraced are described as those who either negate facts or are hypocrites, who act as believers and distort the truth for the sake of control and power. Review of Parts 1 to 7.1. Parts 1 to 6 describe the uniqueness of God in terms of the unique and evolving natural and social systems that God created, and the importance of education. Qualities of people called the blessed or disgraced in the Quran. Transfer of leadership from Bani Israel to Bani Hashim. Distortions in previous books updated in the Quran, and how to identify and avoid possible distortions in the Quran. Part 7 addresses the concepts of some rules and obligations regarding fasting, Hajj, Qisas, compensation, and relationships via case studies that can be extrapolated to the current standards of contemporary times with justice and scholarship. Introduction to Part 8, verses 246 till the end. Paying obligations with enlightenment. Learning is important before application. False promises to obey the prophets. This section starts with an example when people asked their prophet, Samuel, to allocate a leader to lead the fight for justice. But many rejected the prophet's nominated leader, Talut, so in Torah 1012 to 1028 BC, although he was suggested by God and had the required knowledge and capability for the job. Talut's nomination from God was proved with his possession of the sacred box that had remnants of the family of Musa and Harun, captured by Palestinians. These were the slates God gifted to Musa at Mount Sinai, Tur, the original script of Torah, a bottle of man, a honey-like syrup, and Musa's stick and armor. Awarding prophethood. The problem makers were separated from genuine supporters via a test. The sincere ones were less in number, but high in capabilities and belief. They stood firmly against Jalut, the Palestinian chief of the opposite forces, finally killed by David. Dawood was awarded leadership and prophethood. The Quran elaborates that this is how God awards prophethood to eligible people who have the capability to support the truth and the bravery to fight the wrongdoers. Awards of prophets. Prophets had clear proofs of their prophethood according to their time and culture. For example, magic was considered a proof of knowledge and power in Prophet Moses' time, and he had the power to refute all magic tricks applied to negate him. He was also awarded the status of talking to God and was given the title Kalimullah, the one who talked to God. More examples are of Abraham, whose status was upgraded from a messenger, prophet, to a leader, imam, and was awarded the title Khalilullah, the friend of God, and of Isa, Jesus, who was titled Ruhullah, the Spirit of God. The word Allah or God is common to all these titles, which means they were all from one God. Differences in beliefs are created on purpose. Ideally, with such big proof, the successors of Musa, Isa, and Dawood being all of the Abrahamic faith, delivered by one God, should not have differed in beliefs. But they were made to differ by people who wanted them to differ, applying the theory of divide and rule, as explained in Part 7. Finally, one last messenger, Muhammad, was sent to re-educate and unite people. Those who understand this must share it with others, and they will be answerable to God if they didn't. It is important for people to know that they have been kept in darkness, provided that they want to know and can differentiate between what is concealed and what is revealed by the history. Those who still negate the oneness of God are deliberately in the darkness. Ayat-ul-Kursi, the theory of sovereignty. These verses, 255 to 257, of chapter 1 of the Quran are a clear explanation of the oneness, uniqueness, and divinity of God. There is no divine being other than God, the immortal caretaker of all that God ever created, and all whatsoever is in the process in the expanding universes. Nothing is out of God's attention at any time. God has nothing to do with slumber or snooze to miss out any slightest variation without God's approval. God knows what is around us and beyond, while no one can encompass God's creations and systems except through the opportunities to learn that arise from God. That's how God's sovereignty extends over earth and beyond, yet its preservation is not exhaustive, for God's magnitude of supremacy. Beliefs and ideologies cannot be enforced. They can only be demonstrated by true leaders, and leadership can be distinguished from recklessness. Whoever negates the immoral leadership and entrusts those who are on the right pathway of God is connected to the most trustworthy resource that never misleads. Trust that God hears the sound of silence and knows intentions. Also, God guards people who trust the righteous and enlightens them with certainty in the darkness of doubts, illusions, and misconceptions created by immoral leaders. Those who still negate clear truths align with the evil who drift them from the pathway of enlightenment towards the darkness of illusion and confusion. They create fire for themselves and will stay therein. Example 1. Smugness of power prevents enlightenment. The Quran refers to someone believed to be a king of Iraq who considered himself at par with God. Abraham tried to educate him that God's supremacy is extended to every object of the universe. For example, the motion of the earth and the sun. Then Abraham asked him if he can control the movement of the sun, bringing it up from the west. The king had no answer, yet he stayed stubborn that he was a god. This is an example of ignorance that comes with narcissism of power. The Quran says that such people cannot be educated. They stay in the darkness of ignorance, no matter how much they are enlightened with knowledge. They are too sedated with power to accept the reality. Example 2. Enlightenment is learning with experience. A reference is given of Prophet Uzair, who initially wondered about how God would bring ruins to life. God made him experience a temporary death while sleeping for 100 years. When revived, he felt as if he was asleep for a day, or a part of a day. However, he noted that while his food and drink was still fresh, his donkey had turned into a fossil. That made him convinced of having slept for 100 years. Clearly, he had a positive approach towards learning with experience, and was enlightened, educated, about the complexity of God's systems. He then promoted that human beings, being a creation of themselves, cannot compete with God, and should take God's guidance seriously for social matters as well. So he was given the title of a prophet. Example 3. Guiding towards enlightenment. Abraham asked God to demonstrate how to enlighten people with education while they are in complete darkness. God educated him with an example and asked him to take 4 birds, tame them giving a name to each, then kill them, cut each into 4 pieces, then put the pieces of each bird on 4 separate hills. Finally, call them by their names, and God would not only bring them to life with all pieces joined like they originally were, but would also make them swiftly fly to Abraham, recognizing him as their master. In this way, any reality that is wrecked has its components somewhere that need to be investigated and connected. If they are the right components, they would organically join like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. This feature has been instilled by God in all creations and will enlighten people with the truth. Education and social support are chain reactions. The Quran says that helping someone to come out of the darkness, whether it is poverty or ignorance, is like sowing a seed of grain that grows 7 buds, each carrying 100 grains. In this way, the Quran promises that even a small effort to change someone's life towards development, prosperity, and/or knowledge will multiply and modify the life of hundreds of people, who will further the process like a chain reaction. Therefore, people are advised not to expect a return from whom they spent on. It is from their Lord, who assures that it is an investment with 100 times ROI, return on investment. Helping someone is a responsibility. If someone cannot do that for some reason, they should excuse politely. It would be better than the charity followed by botheration. Reminders to receivers invalidates the help provided. This would have been for display and not to fulfill the responsibility. Thus, no ROI would be earned. They should also know that God does not need help from such people and will choose someone else to make this investment. As mentioned above, God helps people via people to teach the concept of coexistence via sharing opportunities and struggles. Helping to display and with defective items. Metaphorically, the Quran explains that helping people to gain favors is equivalent to building up a garden of palm trees and grapevines with streams flowing underneath to irrigate the garden, yielding the best fruit only to be burnt when the fruits are ripe and ready to nourish. Also, help means sharing money or usable things in good conditions out of what one has legitimately earned or produced, not any defective items that are worthless. Fear of losing savings when sharing with the needy. In the light of the rewarding systems explained above, it is advised not to feel threatened of losing earnings or savings, leading to devastation when spending on the needy. God promises bounty and encompasses even a minor expenditure for great rewards in return. People thinking wisely will be able to understand this easily. However, it is important to have faith that God knows the difference between sharing and investment, and will not help those who help someone as an investment to gain favors. Also, disclosing help may be good only if it is necessary, otherwise it will ensure embarrassment. Rewards are for everyone. The Quran advises that Prophet Muhammad is not responsible to promise any rewards for Muslim spending for the disadvantaged. Whatever everyone spends shall be fully repaid as explained above, regardless of faith. God will also help those who face hardships and restrictions to do the right things. They protect their self-esteem and do not seek financial help, but they can be identified by certain signs if you have an eye. God knows who works hard to identify them, secretly or publicly. Helping someone in need as a business is senseless. Those who consider financial help a trade that must accrue an interest may appear very sensible, but are actually senseless. They do not understand that God has permitted trade in a different way, and has forbidden making interest on money that should be shared with the deserving so as to help them rebuild their lives. Those who realize this and avoid it in the future, while they may have done it in the past, can leave the rest to God. But those who consider it lending and take interest on money spent on someone in need would be participating to collapse a balanced and fair system. In return, they will get a pathetic life forever. Lending money in need. Helping in need is a moral investment that returns with permanent extravagances and satisfaction as a gift from God. Therefore, it is advised to forfeit interest on money that someone borrows in difficult times. In such situation, you are only entitled to get your principal paid back. Otherwise, you will be an oppressor and will get oppression in return. This will be against God's direction and is an accountable action. In extreme hardship, you should even postpone the return of principal, if possible, until they can return it with ease. The best would be to consider forfeiting it. On the day of accountability, every soul will be compensated for what it earned, and no one will be treated unfair. Lending must be documented. The contract of lending must be documented with its terms, by an honest and capable scribe, as agreed by the borrower, with complete accuracy and precision. In case the borrower is incapable of understanding the deed due to limited knowledge or old age, or for any other reason, their guardian or nominee should do the job honestly in the presence of 2 witnesses, satisfying the criteria of witnessing. The witnesses should be impartial to the amount or the term of the loan. This is justice and makes testification stronger, preventing any doubts. The only exclusion to this process is an emergency transaction where documentation might be difficult or unreasonable. All financial matters must be carried out according to the above process. Threatening the scribe or witness. The scribe or witness must be free of any threats so that they can carry out their role impartially without any pressures. Anyone having such intentions must be ready to pay it off. Those who stay on the right path shall be granted with more opportunities to learn the depth of matters and God knows who. In case of traveling where you cannot find a scribe, a valued item can be taken as security deposit. The one who is entrusted for the deposit would also stay a witness of the transaction in this case, and concealing testimony is a crime. Everything happening anywhere is in the knowledge of God, and God is capable of differentiating right from wrong. The last 3 verses of Sura Baqarah, the cow. The messengers have faith in what is revealed to them from their Lord. So do the faithful. They also trust the couriers of God's messages, the books sent by God, and all of God's messengers, making no distinctions. They trust what they hear from them and follow. They seek forgiveness for any wrongdoings, and have faith in returning to God. Your Lord does not bother a soul beyond its capacity. Moreover, those maintaining a good character with others will earn the same in return, while those acting evil will be reciprocated. What goes around comes around. However, you should not expect that your Lord would blame you for something you did by mistake, or would ask you to take responsibility that He asked someone else to take, while you don't have the ability to bear it. Finally, if you seek pardon for your wrongdoings, your Lord will have mercy upon you, provided you wish to reform sincerely. In that case, your Lord will help you overpower the negators. References: Quran translation by Ali Quli Karai. Quran translation by Ayatollah Dr. Niyaz Muhammad Hamadani. Balaghul Quran by Sheikh Mohsin Najafi. Quran-e-Mubin by Dr. Sayyid Hassan Rizvi. Quran translation by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. The Legacy Quran